What's going on, everybody? Kenan here, and I'm at Garden State Turtle and Tortoise, and I'm with Chris Leone. We're back, man. Oop, trying to open that shutter. It's giving me a hard time, but I keep rolling with it, Chris. I don't stop. I just keep rolling.
Can't stop, won't stop.
Yeah, we can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, Chris Leone, a good friend of mine up here in New Jersey. I'm actually on family vacation, but I thought, you know what? I got to break away, and I've got to see what new things he's working on, because the last video we did from your place was just so well received. People love to see how you build things. You live up north, so there's some challenges with that. Yeah. But I love to show the viewers here on Kamp Kenan how to kind of create really cool habitats that are functional, simple, and you know, work well for the animals. So today we're going to focus on a species called Chercina angulata, or
the angulate or bowsprit tortoise.
There you go. That's what threw me. I knew of the bowsprit. I thought it was two different things. I'm like, that's why it's so good when you use the Latin name. So it is the angulated tortoise, and here is one. So why don't you talk to us a little bit about this species, Chris? It's your show, buddy.
So these guys are extremely common in the wild. In South Africa, where they live, they're actually one of the highest densities of tortoises or any colonian on the planet. But they're notoriously difficult in captivity. So it's one of those things where it's like they're doing so great in nature, but they're not doing so well in captivity. It's kind of opposite to those endangered species that are functionally extinct in the wild, but are doing amazing in captivity. So these guys are the exact opposite of that. And part of it has to do with just the general geographic areas of where people are trying to keep them. They seem to do much better indoors because they can't handle humidity too well. But kind of like anything that, at least in my opinion, that I like to keep, if you set them up right from the start, maybe try to make it at least a little bit like what they're accustomed to in the wild, then they might do better. So we're trying them outside here. And you know, as you can see, even though it's up north, there's a lot of sweat today.
Yeah, it's very, very hot, guys. We're close to 100 degrees, and that's why right now the animals are all under the shade of these bushes. But you know, just something I'm noticing here, number one, since this species is from South Africa, you know, a little bit more of a drier climate, but influenced by maybe some ocean mists. There's a lot of like dew that will blow in off the South Atlantic, where obviously the Atlantic and the South Indian Ocean meet. But I really love the habitats, man. Very simple design. You're using, what is this, 2x6?
2x6 and 2x10.
Okay, and you just nail it. You get 4 posts in the ground and nail them together.
And then you could divide them,
right,
and easily make different units, because these tortoises, you know, they're called bowsprit tortoise because of the, actually, might as well point it out.
Yeah, all right.
They've got the
beautiful gular projection.
They got the gular projection down there that they used to joust with. So you don't really want to ever house males together. And even, you know, when you're housing males and females, the males can get carried away with pestering the females.
Okay.
So
how many are in this each division here, each enclosure?
One adult tortoise per division, except for the last one, which is where the 2 juveniles are living.
Okay, cool. But I like what you did, man. I love this driftwood. You're just obviously finding that in some of the woods that you have around here, right?
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. And then these plants, are these plants edibles?
Anything in here can be eaten by them. You know, we've got different types of sedums. We've got coreopsis, Spanish lavender, fountain grass, and Russian salvia. And then this is a spirea bush, so they can eat any of this if they want to. They can pretty much destroy it too if they want to. But they're small species, and they don't do too much of that mowing down like leopards and sulcatas will.
So you used a different kind of soil in here. You allow it to dry off, and I noticed that this bed, you've kind of raised up the soil for drainage, right? Yep.
I'm trying to keep them out of any kind of flooding or pooling, because, you know, just like Florida, we get heavy rains here. Right. But, and I actually, you know, I watered these plants last night, so the water is, I mean, the substrate is still a little damp in areas, but it dries up real nice. It's a kind of a sandy fill mix is what they call it. Okay. Which is, you know, what they occur on in Africa. They always occur in they prefer like a sandy substrate.
And as we saw with this animal, it burrows down into a microclimate, okay? So right now it's the hottest part of the day, this animal's staying in the shade, but it burrowed down into that humid or more moist soil, which even, you know, people sometimes get confused when they hear about an animal from a dry area. They think, oh, it's got to be bone dry. Yeah. That's not the case.
Everything requires water to some extent. You know?
I often tell people, if you're from the desert, water is pretty darn important. You know, it's pretty much the basis for your existence. So it's just a matter of how they get it and how much they get. But again, look at how this is planted, everybody. Really, really nice design. And it can look aesthetically pleasing too. That's something that, you know, I often impress upon people when thinking about these animals. You know, don't don't worry. You should also worry about yourself and,
yeah, of course,
and your enjoyment, and make it a garden, because these animals are so interesting. They're living jewels, in my opinion. Look at this. We have a little guy just running around. This is one of your hatchlings.
Yep.
So this is really, you're one of the few people, I'm not sure how many have actually produced the angulated tortoise here in the United States. Do you know what's going on there?
The only people that I know of is myself, Dan Starantino, Kingsley Rodrigo, the Turtle Conservancy, and then there is, I believe it's a woman out in California. I don't know her name that has hatched a few, but you know, there has been an unbelievable amount of hatching failures with them, infertility rates, eggs developing and failing. In fact, it took me an incredible amount of trial and error before I was able to successfully hatch them. And of all the eggs I've gotten, there's only been 2 successful hatches. So Dan Starantino and I and a couple other people started the Crescina angulata working group last year, and it's the whole target of it has been to try to create awareness for how to keep these animals and even possibly propagate them properly under captive conditions.
Now, another interesting tidbit, guys, is that I don't know if it's this particular tortoise, but why don't you tell me about how you came to hatch one of these, actually?
This one in particular, actually, the larger one, I incubated and successfully hatched, but this one I found in the enclosure, the indoor enclosure, last September. I had just come home from vacation, and I was just getting back into the run of everything, seeing how the animals had done while I was away, and as I'm looking into the female's enclosure, I just froze, because I could see it. I could see it it was right next to its mother basking, and I'm just looking at it, and I'm staring at it, and I'm staring at it, and I'm like,
wait, did I have 3? Like, what's going on? So that means that you missed an egg.
Yes.
And it incubated in the indoor enclosure and
hatched on its own.
That's incredible. I mean, that's actually best case scenario, if you ask me.
It is, and it was also kind of one of those things where it's like, I just went through all this to try to hatch one, and then I could just end up doing it on accident.
Sometimes nature, like good old Ian Malcolm says, man, life finds a way, if you're a Jurassic Park fan. But it's really good, even though this animal's plentiful in the wild, it is good to create captive bred animals here in the United States, because eventually the pet trade will turn to those wild animals, and they will most likely be poached. Here's another one, just kind of.
That's actually the mother of that one.
Oh, is it really? Yeah, that's so cool.
And what's interesting about these guys in particular, which backs up a lot of the theories on wild caught versus captive bred. The captive bred ones they're virtually bulletproof. They're incredibly hardy, incredibly personable, no issues with them at all. You compare that to these, the wild caught adults that are coming into the country for the pet trade, and they're the ones that are a mess.
Right.
So that's, if we can reach that common goal of making them all captive bred specimens in people's collections, a lot of the problems just work themselves out.
Well, there you have it, everybody. All right, we're losing some battery here. I'm going to wrap up this episode of Kamp Kenan. We're hanging out here with Chris Leone at Garden State Turtle and Tortoise. We'll have a link in the description of where you can kind of go to check him out. You can check him out on Instagram at Garden State Tortoise, correct?
Garden_State_Tortoise.
There you go. Check him out. He does a lot of cool stuff. I enjoy visiting him. Don't forget to like and subscribe here on this channel, and share videos if you want to learn about reptiles, and more specifically, chelonians. All right, everybody, I leave you with this cute little dude hauling turtle butt, or rather tortoise butt.